Everything you need to know about commercial aviation. This is Layovers.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello everybody, this is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience.
We would like to apologize for the very, very long delay in getting that flight in the air. Our flight time today will be 1 hour and 7 minutes, and we expect an on-time arrival, we promise you that. Coming up on this flight, want a million freaking flyer miles. We have to be born on a Cebu Pacific flight or win the Olympic gold for Singapore. British Airways charters a 747 to fly athletes home, but no word if they also got the second hot meal like on all their other routes. In the US, being a multi-medal winner won't get you upgraded on United, but unlike Delta, they won't mistake New Mexico for Mexico. Airbus is going wide body for regional flights, but also planning flying taxis. Will these accept smart carry-ons, like Alex loves them, or augmented reality amenity tickets, like Emirates just released?
As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-canceling headphones.
Flight 45 to Rome. Hi, Alex.
Rome, yeah, this is a good one. This is your Iron Maiden trip, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Which we talked about in the last episode, but I want to hear more about it because not a lot of people I know go to another country to go to a concert. So there's a story there which I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you at the end. Please ask me at the end. And Rome is an interesting airport. It has changed. I hinted at that in the last episode as well. It has changed in a good way. So I'll get to there. First, a few reviews we've got of iTunes. Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for taking the time to do that, guys.
Yeah, this is really, really appreciated. We have 4 new reviews. All are 5 stars. Wow. One says, fantastic podcast in all caps. This podcast is great for anyone who likes getting to the airport early and watching the planes land and take off. Thank you. Someone says, and so, hello, I don't know who you are because you're MCT567. After listening to Paul speak at a travel conference in the UK, I wanted to hear more. This podcast is just the right length and full up-to-date news. Keep it up. So, yeah, thank you. I don't know who you are, but we probably maybe met, or at least you heard me. And a great aviation podcast, great with like all caps as well. Again, from Woody42912 from the US. He says that he or she actually says, especially a great podcast to listen to, especially while flying and eating a meal on board. That's exactly what you like to do.
AIDS digestion.
Also, LA Flyer on Twitter at LA Flyer without the E. He's always very enthusiastic about listening to us. So thank you so much for the mention. And finally, a quick mention. I was invited at another podcast, which has a very also good reviews. It's called Aviation Xtended. We mentioned it a few times already on this show. So basically, if you want to hear me babble about aviation, a little bit what we do here with Alex not every week, I was about to say every 2 weeks now, you can go. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a great conversation and it's a great show. So check it out. I really enjoyed listening to it. I think you guys had a very, very good rapport.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There was on the same episode, there's Marissa from Flying Geeks. She also writes for Skift from time to time. She's a great, great, great person in terms of everything PAX-X, so the passenger experience. And our friend Mark, the pilot for BA747 and the author.
Wow, that's an all-star lineup.
Well, I'm not sure I'm fitting right there, but I mean, that was very kind of them to invite me. So thank you. We had a lot of fun. Actually, we spent an hour talking about aircrafts and airplanes before hitting the record button. And we should have just recorded that because it was amazing. I had a great time. One thing I didn't know, did you know there was a National Aviation Day in the US?
I did not know that until you told me about it. It's a shame that I feel kind of embarrassed that I didn't know about it because what a great day. Today, August 25th is National Burger Day, so equally as important in my life. But how cool that there's a National Aviation Day, and it's not something that's just on a calendar. There's some big stuff that happened on this day.
Yeah, there was a lot of activities. It's our friend Elizabeth, who lives in D.C., who was telling me about it. I was clueless. There was one story on CNN.com that was really fun. There were like a few AV geeks, people like us, were probably more hardcore than us, who got clearance to visit 10 airports in the US, London, plus also some restricted facilities of American Airlines, all in that day. That's wow. Why don't we pitch that to some airlines and just do it, Alex?
I know it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Yeah, they got to go up in the towers. They got to go, behind the scenes, which is fascinating. And I think a really, really good idea to show how complex the industry is. And it's not magic. Well, it is magic, but it's a lot of people doing a lot of different jobs to get us from A to B. But yeah, National Aviation Day has been around since 1939.
Oh, wow.
And the reason it's August 19th is because that's Orville Wright's birthday.
Oh, I see.
And it was signed into being by FDR in 1939 because of that. So it's it's lovely. I think it's a very important thing.
Yeah, I don't think we have any of that here in Europe or in other countries. I should look it up. I have no clue, but I don't think so. It's not related to the National Aviation Day, but it's also one of full day of epic AV geekery is Brett, Cranky Flyer. He had his 10th anniversary of his blog, I think, and he went through 8 airports in a single day. What a day must have been.
Yeah, he's a glutton for punishment. Brett's a great guy. I met him years ago during my Virgin America days, and he's a very important critic of the airline industry, and critic in a sort of movie critic kind of position, not always negative. But this trip, I mean, the LA Times did a great feature on it, and he must have been broken by the end of it.
The cool thing is that airlines pulled through. They actually helped him because, making 8 airports in a day with the potential of delays, et cetera, and the short connections and whatever, Southwest were like there and helping him go from one aircraft to the other. So that was a great thing. You can see, the airline industry are nice people. They will help you make crazy shit.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was based on a Southwest promo where if you fly 10 one-way flights within California, you get a companion pass. So he tried to do it. He did it in one day, and he kind of bounced around all these places. And Southwest saturation in California is almost total, so you can bounce around all these places. But it's so cool. What a neat... It's worth reading the story. He did a good job.
Yeah. Talking about crazy story, this time from someone who's probably not an AV geek. Have you seen that story of that guy running to catch his Ryanair flight on the Madrid tarmac?
Which is insane. So for those of you that are of our vintage, you'll recall the movie Dumb and Dumber, where Lloyd Christmas, played by Jim Carrey, runs off the end of the jetway and falls flat on his face. This isn't that different. This guy actually went to the end of a empty jet bridge, busted open the fire alarm, so the alarm went off, jumped down onto the tarmac, and sprinted to his airplane.
It was not even the right airplane because he sprinted to one Ryanair aircraft that he saw in front of him, which was not the one. But that's all on video, guys, so you can actually see it if you go on the link that we'll put in the show notes, which is just crazy. But the thing, which I don't understand, first, I mean, let's talk security later, but apparently he made his flight.
Yeah, that's what I can. He actually made his flight. They actually let him on the flight.
What?
It's not a bus. It's not like, the driver will stop and let you come on. I mean, the folks that run the Madrid airport were quick to point out that he'd gone through all those security, protocols that we all would have. He just decided to take matters into his own hands. And when they got to, I think they were going to the Canary Islands, he was promptly arrested. Which is good. But how? I don't even, this is hilarious. It's funny because, no one got hurt. He could have been very badly hurt. The ramp of a busy airport like Madrid is an incredibly dangerous place if you don't know what you're doing. But
and also jumping off a jet bridge, it's not that low, right? It's still, you can see he's not jumping like head first, by the way, right? He's not totally wasted or something. So yeah, but of course, some people are talking about, what about security? Yeah, you're right. He went already through most of the security, but still, yeah, what went through his mind to just like jump off a jet bridge to get on this plane? But I don't know.
It's insane.
Would you ever do that?
No. I mean, actually thinking about it, probably.
I will note one thing, though. I've never taken Ryanair in Madrid, so I don't know whether or not that's the case. But that would be one of the only airports that offers a jet bridge for a Ryanair flight, because usually you're bust. You never go through like a jet bridge.
That's true. But he may have just used the jet bridge to get onto the tarmac and then jump up the stairs. Who knows? Craziness. Absolutely. It's like something, like it is literally something out of a movie.
Yeah, talking about something out of the movie, less fun, but thankfully no one was hurt. I mean, I think one firefighter was hurt. Everybody talked about that a few weeks ago. There was this, for the first time in Emirates history, a full loss of an aircraft, a 777 crash landed at Dubai Airport. Wow.
Yeah, quite a story.
But the good thing, because then we can go on about speculation why it happened, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about it. But the good thing is the evacuation went super fast. People were out in the 90 seconds frame. No one was hurt. Everybody was able to escape before the plane was engulfed in flames. So, wow.
Yeah,
Good.
I think if you're going to be in an accident, or you're going to have an accident of this scale, then this is how you want it to play out. I mean, you never want this type of thing to happen, but the way that Emirates handled it on every single level was quite extraordinary. As you say, the evacuation was done in a textbook fashion, and it's a tragedy that fireman or firefighter lost their life. Given the scale of the fire and the crash, it is a miracle that no one else was even injured. But quite an extraordinary thing. And I again, like you said, speculating to the cause, but it looks like it was just this perfect 1 in a billion combination of issues that happened right as this plane was landing.
Extreme conditions. You have to never to forget that Dubai Airport is extremely hot, so that sometimes puts the digital equipment out of whack. So you have to be particularly. There was an article from an ex Emirates pilot who says, it's not as easy to land in such conditions as it is in normal conditions we would have in Paris, London, or New York.
Yep.
And there might have been something, was the plane attempting a turnaround, and then the computer gave like contrary orders. We'll see about that. The thing is, what I'm most impressed at is that Emirates never had lost a plane before, and Dubai never had seen such an accident before. And for both of them, they were able to go textbook into like how to get the firefighters on the scene, how to evacuate the plane swiftly. We know that the industry learns that, but when an airline never had that, or an airport never had that, you're always wondering, will they be up to the task whenever it happens? And they've proven it, that from everything, from the actual things that were happening on the ground to the communication that were happening to the public, to the press, etc., the way they also supported families, it seems that it's pretty textbook. It's pretty impressive, I must admit.
For me, reinforced my admiration for Emirates and Dubai Airport. I think they handled it brilliantly. And again, you never want this type of thing to happen, but it showed, as you say, this is the first time that this has happened to them or to the airport. And it just went fine. And I don't think there was a single word of criticism to anybody involved.
No, exactly. And, there was somebody that said, I think it was on Twitter, said, these young flight attendants are just not there to smile and serve you drinks. And they proved it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this trend as well, but certainly on a lot of the airlines I fly, when the captain does their welcome, they always say that the crew are here primarily for your safety and security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to watch the safety briefing. But it's true. That's what they're there for, is to make sure that we're all safe and sound, and then to make us comfortable.
Yeah. There was a bit of debate, of course, because like with that Asiana flight who crashed at San Francisco, we saw images. I mean, first of all, it's unbelievable. It seems that everything will be filmed. In the next few years, we'll have like portable cameras. There was an actual film from a passenger inside during the evacuation. Let's not go whether it was right or not to do it, because that's my point here. Some people were taking their carry-ons with them, some of their belongings, while the plane was evacuating. So, of course, a lot of people were complaining about that. I mean, again, textbook, people went out in the allotted time. Nobody was hurt. It's true that when you see these images from an outsider point of view, like, come on, why the hell? I don't know. What I would say is not to defend any other passengers, but is to say that in extraordinary and very high pressure environment that even you and me are not used to, we don't know how we would actually react.
Yes.
And maybe some people, just automatically because that's the thing you do when you go out of an aircraft. You take your stuff.
Yep.
Maybe some of the people, because the flight was coming from India, maybe the belongings were really important to them. So again, I'm not finding excuses. I'm saying that, and we will invite someday. We have someone that we want to invite who actually studies that kind of thing. To see that it's not just black and white. You cannot just say, oh, these passengers are stupid. They shouldn't have taken their belongings. Yes, we know they shouldn't. And you can hear in the film that the crew is telling them, leave the luggage behind. Like they repeat it over and over and over. But, still you have that debate. Do you have any thoughts about that one?
Yeah, it's the same reason why they still tell you how to fasten and unfasten your seatbelt.
Yeah.
And in the safety videos, we're all looking at that going, I'm pretty sure I can figure out the mechanics of a seatbelt. But in the throes of an emergency, you're used to I think we've talked about this on past episodes. You're used to pressing a button and releasing it. And when you're panicking and that sort of muscle memory is leading you astray, that can cause problems. And I think it's the same thing when you get off the airplane. Your natural inclination is to grab the things that are important to you. And actually, right after this Emirates incident, I was chatting with a few people, all of whom were in the airline industry, and they all said, "Look, yeah, I can understand it in a way. You want to grab, at the very least, your passport.
Your passport,
because if it's destroyed and then you're stuck, and then there's a queue for the other people to get their passports taken care of. You can see the thought process in somebody's mind that would suggest, yeah, I at the very least want to grab." And we all have the different perceptions of what's valuable to us. To me, it would probably literally be my passport. But for someone else, it may be that treasured family heirloom that they might have, or the camera that they just got. I'm not going to place any judgment on anybody's perception of value, but you can see how someone would think, I need to grab my cabin bag.
And also in Insight, when you look at the video, we know that like 3 minutes later, huge flames are engulfing the plane. When you look at the video, yes, the plane has just crash landed, so I'm not diminishing that, but the plane is in one full piece. There seems to be a lack of urgency, that's overstatement, but like you said, your muscle memory kicks in, you're like, what's going on, and you don't see the flames, so maybe you're not reacting like immediately, like, again, I just want to say that we shouldn't be black and white. No. And you're right, repeating over and over some stuff at the beginning is important. It said that, I think I also mentioned that BA used to have this real plane exercises. You and me, we can actually go and take and pay for a day. I think they stopped it because they changed the facilities. It's too bad because when you're in that, people know if they listen to the show that you will tell the passenger next to you, where is the emergency exit? You'll point that
if
to
I know
them.
them, yeah. If I'm traveling with somebody, I usually, and it drives my wife crazy, but that's something that somebody in aviation safety taught me, and it just, I always glance around and go, okay, if something bad happens, how am I gonna get off?
That's the thing I was getting to. Actually, if the plane is full black, which is not the case in the Emirates here, but you don't see anything, and some of the electricity, fails. Do you know, and I'm not asking you, I'm asking our listeners, do you actually know how many seats you're supposed to count before the exit? You might not, you'll be lost. It's important to actually have some situational awareness of where you are. I'm not saying to overdo it and to make the entire plane crazy about your emergency anxiety, but I mean, some of the stuff is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And when I did that flight to Shanghai a while ago, and they had to reboot the airplane, and it was pitch black. You go, oh yeah, wow, it really is dark. And that's another reason why they ask you to open the window blinds on takeoff and landing, because if something bad happens, you want natural light to come in, and you also want the emergency services to be able to see in and assess the situation inside. But we've seen it in, as you said, Asiana. We saw it in the BA Las Vegas engine fire. An extraordinary amount of people taking their cabin baggage off. And I'm really excited to talk to this chap that you found that is a psychologist and has some theories about this, just to understand how we can fix this and the root causes of it.
One of the most talked points after the incident with Emirates was, should we have a system that automatically locks the overheads? So basically, when you're, the flight attendant, for instance, would have a button that centrally locks in the entire plane, all the overheads. First of all, there's a cost, of course. I mean, you have to retrofit all the planes and blah, blah, blah. Then, would you think that really would prevent me, if I were, let's say I'm that kind of guy, suddenly I panic and I want to take my passport. And I still put my hand in like, why is it not opening? Why is it?
Yeah,
Am I not,
exactly.
like,
I think it's just going to cause more panic. I don't think that's going to work. And as you say, there's a cost, there's a weight implication. One of the things that I did see floating around, I think it was on Twitter, was a suggestion that we have to redo the safety video and safety briefing content to really emphasize this point that seriously, don't grab anything. It's just not worth it. Because they really don't talk about it any more aggressively than anything else. And I understand it. You don't want to sort of dwell on something like, you know,
we're going to crash.
A crash, yeah, you know, because they are in the highly unlikely event, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's probably, one arrow in the quiver of solving this problem.
Was it the movie Airplane when they showing on the IFE like an airplane crash or something?
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what you want to avoid, right?
Movie.
And to finish off this Emirates story with a nice twist, one of the survivors just won the lottery afterwards.
I know. Oh, come on. It's the most incredible story. It's like a bad movie script. He won not a small amount of money either.
Yeah, no, I think 1 million. Well, I don't remember the currency. Was it $1 million or?
Who cares?
But anyway,
he's a millionaire now.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Anyway, I don't want to crash for that though.
No,
still.
I think exactly. I'd rather be broke and alive than dead and rich.
One story you pointed out to me the other day is that Emirates, since we're on Emirates, is releasing new amenity kits for coach, and that's great because once we're talking about coach, and they have a feature that an augmented reality feature. So if you point out your phone in front of one part of the amenity kit, it creates some feedback to your phone, and you get what do you get actually? I'm not even sure.
It's very cool. So this was from our friend Johnny at the Design Air. And the fact that it's an economy amenity kit that looks so damn good is. I mean, have you seen them? They're beautiful.
Yeah, they look really beautiful. I've seen the company. So Blipar is the startup that does this type of thing. I've seen them in the UK, where basically they can transform almost any type of design or drawing into something that can be read by your phone and then and create something. So that's what they do.
So you get content with, I think it's music and in-flight health tips and activities and things like that. And I think it's less about the content and more about the amenity kits themselves, which are great, and the technology used to do it. It's just neat.
Nice to see, some stuff done in coach. Quickly, since we're on Emirates, their partner is Quantas. Quantas was having issues for a long time financially, and they seem to have completely reversed the trend because they just announced 1 billion in profit.
Incredible.
Yeah, so there was a lot of cost cutting. It was not easy on the cruise, not easy on a lot of things. They went also some of the stuff, the cost cutting as passengers, you can apparently feel it. I haven't flown them for like more than 15 years, so I cannot judge, but wow, we always hear stories about airlines struggling. It's nice for once to see an airline that is actually doing so well.
Yeah, it really is. And as you said, they really struggled for a long time, and I think had some growing pains with the A380. And this partnership with Emirates seems to have really worked out well for them. As you said, I don't think I've ever flown on Qantas.
Yeah, I have, but I mean, I guess maybe even 20 years ago.
I'd like to. I just I need to get out to Australia first, obviously.
No, actually, you could...
I could do London, Dubai, couldn't I?
Exactly. Some of the flights that are marketed Emirates are Qantas and the opposite. So you could actually end up in a Qantas flight. So yeah, you could
that's a good idea. I want to do that.
Yeah, you don't need to go that far. I mean, that far. Still Dubai. But,
yeah.
But apparently it's a great airline. People always, say, and talking about, safety record, I think it's one of the best, if not the best safety record ever.
It is. And I've read some trip reports on airliners, and certainly the premium product looks incredible. And I actually think that the improvement in quality in Virgin Australia has helped Qantas as well by not allowing them to rest on their laurels.
From 1 billion in profit to 1 million miles, Cebu Pacific had a baby born on one of its planes, which is very rare, and they offered that baby 1 million miles.
This is
pretty
lovely.
Cool. This is sweet.
This is so great.
Guys, you know what you have to do if you want to transform your kid into a Navy geek. Give birth at Cebu Pacific. There was another 1 million miles, since we're on 1 million miles. Schooling, the swimmer from Singapore that won on swimming the first ever gold medal for Singapore. Singapore Airlines offered him as well 1 million miles.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's your second way of being a Navy geek. You have to win a
Win
gold
Olympic
medal.
gold. No
Yeah,
problem. But we'll talk later that that doesn't necessarily guarantee you good treatment.
Let's go to the US for a little bit. First, there was an article that was sent to me by Gen Kanai from The Economist, where basically it goes into what we always say about what could the US airlines do to get better. And it's true that we always also say that if you compare it by continent, it's not a very relevant comparison, but there's always like the great stuff is in Asia and the Middle East, then Europe is okay, and then the US is always like not really that good, right? And there was another article in the Wall Street Journal with the title is pretty, it says a lot. It says why the big three airlines are so much the same. Of course, it comes back to the stories we also talked about, which is somewhat of a lack of competition. So the three big airlines are just matching each other. If one decides not to go for IFE anymore, the two others remove the IFE. If one wants to change the frequent flyer program to being based on the amount of money you spend, the two others are also imitating it, meaning that it creates less and less and less of a difference in the airline. Is it something, at least in coach, is it something that you felt?
Yeah,
yourself?
absolutely. There's such a homogenous experience across the big three airlines. They lack any personality, and any personality they do have is entirely manufactured. I think that's why it's so much easier for airlines like Southwest and JetBlue and Virgin America to stand out when you move away from that blandness. You know, even if the product isn't, you know, orders of magnitude different or even better, you can, by just injecting a little bit of personality and thinking slightly differently, you can really stand out.
So I haven't flown them domestically as much as you probably did, which is why, but it's understandable. If you have only three big ones and they have this huge market and they have to compete, they'll be very close to each other. I mean, in Europe, because of the segmentation of the markets, even though there's one big open skies in Europe, but because of the various different countries, we end up with slightly differentiated products. And Asia is even bigger than that because you have a huge continent with tons of countries and different cultures that creates, again, this type of dynamism that it might be like in the US. Though, interestingly, the US3 was like, these Middle Eastern couriers have subsidized, blah, 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 blah. They lost that. Now they lost that argument. And interestingly enough, Delta is now releasing a new business product, which is pretty amazing. It's called the One Suite. And it's the first ever business product with your own doors. You know, the doors you'd usually have in first class with, you know, the Singapore, Emirates, Etihad, et cetera, et cetera. They will offer, of course, it's not as big, but they will offer a product with your own door, a lot of privacy. So they are differentiating in the end, right?
Yeah, they're trying, and I think it doesn't look too bad. The pattern on the seat is weird. Maybe I'm not hip enough to appreciate it, but yeah, it's a good product. I mean, just from the pictures, obviously I haven't experienced it yet. It's still not up there with, you know, the top 10 airlines in the world, but it's an improvement. And hopefully, as we've seen in the transcontinental market in the US, hopefully this type of thing will spur on the other US carriers to innovate.
Of course, the caveat in all this, that was the same for the Polaris product from United, is that the rollout will be very limited or will take a long time. But
Yes.
Still, it's nice to see that they're doing efforts, and it means that there's a demand for that, because if, you know, they are trying to reduce costs, but at the same time offer that kind of seat, is that there are people, there are maybe corporates that are ready to pay for such a product. So, you know, at the end of the day, competition is good, because if one does it, the next will try to do it, right? It's, but talking about the state of the US market, I had no clue that American Airlines still had some MD-80s.
Yeah, loads.
Loads, yes,
Loads.
exactly.
They really do have tons of them. And I think it's been such a huge component of their fleet. They had 370 of them at one point that were the kind of the backbone of their domestic market. And they still have 50 left. But the other day, day before yesterday, they retired 45 in one go. And they flew them all out to Roswell, New Mexico, with one of the boneyards out there. And at one point, there was one landing at Roswell every 5 minutes.
Must have been so cool to
Which
watch,
must have
actually.
been, like, for a moment there, Roswell, it must have been one of the busiest airports in America. But the
I think the first customer was Swissair back in the days when it still existed. And I remember that I flew that as a kid. So for me, it was this plane doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, well, apparently it's there.
yeah, it's still there.
I want to fly it, though. I love flying these old, you know, planes. It's nice before they get retired. I mean, it doesn't probably get the same echo maybe not deserve it as the 747 that are retiring, but still, it's nice to see these old planes retiring.
Absolutely. And I don't think they're going anywhere. I'm sure you'll see them flying around the skies, especially as cargo conversions. But the average age of those planes they retired was 28 years old. And they were domestic, so the cycles must have been through the roof.
Talking about something that is very old is the IT system in the US. There was a nice article by Skift on that if you're interested. Not going to dwell on it. Basically, the story, we know it. All the IT systems, all the software was written like, in the Neanderthal age, like thousands of years ago. And of course, it keeps failing. Delta had a huge fail a few weeks ago where basically the entire network was down. So all the planes were grounded. Nothing was working. That created a lot of mess. Interestingly, it started because of power outage.
Yeah, it was just a knock-on effect. And I think this article is great at explaining the kind of the interconnectedness, and not in a good way, of all of these 30, 40, 50-year-old systems on top of newer, web APIs. It just, if one falls over, everything falls over.
Another quick jog at Delta. There was a story where some of their customer representatives did mistakenly misunderstood that New Mexico and Mexico are not the same thing. So this passenger was trying to go to New Mexico and they were telling him you need to have your passport.
So
anyway,
embarrassing.
Another story that is not very important to the industry, but that was that JetBlue flight. Wow. That must have been quite something because the toilet was dislocated.
Yeah, it must have been incredible turbulence. Because you're right, there's a picture that someone posted on Twitter of the aft toilet was completely ripped from its housing. Unbelievable.
It must be quite something. Or the toilet was really badly installed. But I mean, come on. We've seen really bad images of turbulences. I remember that Singapore airline flights maybe like 2 years ago. Well, like you had drinks on the ceilings and stuff. But that must have been quite something. Anyway, going back to some more relevant story. A friend of mine, Hiroko Tabuchi, she writes for the New York Times. She used to live in Tokyo. That's where I met her. She's very followed on Twitter. If you want to follow, I'll put the link in the show notes. And she was... So Simone Biles, I think I pronounced it correctly. Simone Biles. She won a few gold medals during the Olympics. And United was flying her back to the US. And Hiroko said, what? She won and you're putting her in coach?
Yeah, there's this... And I think she's right to call them out. Simone Biles won 475 gold medals at the Olympics and was just incredible. And United Airlines sponsor the U.S. Olympic team. And there's this picture of her. And the original picture was not a dig or complaint at United Airlines. It was just taken by one of her teammates saying, look how quickly she fell asleep. But then your friend was like, come on, she won 4 gold medals. And she was the flag bearer. And you put her in economy. And it's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. I think also United's response was so just sort of bland and yeah, they just said, we're exceptionally proud of all our Olympians and we're glad Miss Biles enjoyed her flight back. It's like, you didn't answer the criticism. You just dodged it. So, but she's not, she didn't get a million miles. For sure.
No, exactly. United's customer service has never been considered good. They usually answer you a lot of bland responses. Oh, my flight is late. We hope you enjoyed your flight. You're like, okay, fine.
Yeah, it's clearly just...
This is something you and me rave about. We can see which airlines have given their frontline ownership of issues, and United is clearly not one of them, sadly. There's been a reshuffle at United. They changed, I think, the CFO and the COO. Munoz is cleaning house. Will that change anything? We'll see. The thing that I didn't know is that, United and Continental merged. And I didn't realize that for all those years since they merged, because that's not new, the flight attendants didn't have a contract. I mean, they still were on their grandfather contract from the old airlines, which meant, because that's the crazy thing, it means that if you were a United crew, you could only fly it on United metal, and if you were Continental crew, on Continental metal. So, for a merger, that's a disaster, because you can leverage some kind of the symbiosis between, two ex-big airlines. And they finally got a contract, the union signed it, but I was totally unaware of that.
I didn't know that either. That's, given how long that merger has been done, at least on paper, that's incredible.
The state of the US is like BA. There's some stuff that we can rejoice, and some stuff we're still baffled about sometimes with the US airline industry. The big scandal, of course, at the Olympics for the US team was Ryan, how do you pronounce his last name?
Lochte, yeah.
No, because I'll pronounce it in the German way. Let's not dwell on that bit of the story. The interesting bit for us, because we took airlines, I think it was American Airlines who flew his teammates or the other swimmers. And because of that old story that was happening surrounding them, they were curtained off in the plane. So we're going from Simone, who gets a normal seats in economy, to swimmers who get curtained off in the plane.
And you'll notice that they were in business class.
Clearly, you can recognize the front of the cabin on American Airlines there. Up to that, to go where? To go to BA, because BA, what they did, it's not to say that, wow, the Great Britain is better, but they had an entire plane for the entire team. They actually even rebranded the plane, and they called it, I think it was Victorious, with the REO as Rio. That was pretty cool.
Very cute.
But you see, we know that the ratings on NBC for the Olympics were dismal, sadly, maybe. But I guess some other countries were more happy to fly their teams back than some of these US airlines.
Yeah. Did you see the picture of the plane?
Only from the outside, not inside.
I didn't. Well, they posted some pictures of them all having a grand time on the way back. But I love the gold nose cone. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was amazing. Great Britain finished number second on the medal.
Yeah.
You must be happy, Alex, because you're both American and British. You're first and second.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too easy, man. You have the best passports. Have you read that story about that panic that happened at JFK?
Yeah, I did. There was this reports of shots fired, and that kind of one thing led to another, and there was essentially 2 stampedes. People thought that there was something terrible going on, and with recent events that have happened around the world at airports, in Brussels and in Istanbul, you can see why people were a little bit alarmed. But this wasn't a thing, was it?
Okay, it's not speculation, but that comes from an official source. It could have been that during, I think it was Sunday night, during the 100 meters men, so when Usain Bolt won the gold medal, people were clapping so hard because they were encouraging him that some people got scared, and that then led to a panic. I found that pretty unbelievable, but if that's the case, it's just crazy.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you hear people, and you hear the clapping and you hear the yelling. It just takes 1 or 2 people, as this article in New York Magazine kind of points out, just takes 1 or 2 people to kick off, and then panic and an already kind of heightened sense of tension in an airport. But it was the most extraordinary. It was a stampede for literally nothing.
Kevin Rose was in an airport, was Nice, was he?
Yeah, it was Nice.
And also that airport was completely evacuated. I saw that on his Snapchat because, abandoned baggage. People were really, you can feel that, people are anxious about that kind of thing these days, which understandably so. But it's, airport officials must, like, oh shit, there's a abandoned package. We have to close off the entire airport. Wow.
Yeah. And they don't take any risks. They're going to err on the side of caution every single time and evacuate, which is disruptive, but I don't think anybody can blame them for making those choices.
So back to BA, because you fly BA quite often. You will fly them quite often. We'll talk about that in the next episode, but we'll have done all these flights. I fly them from time to time. I will fly them next week. So BA is like that story with the US. Sometimes it's great. There's some stuff you're like, come on. The Economist wrote an article on why BA is failing its customers. The same stories you and me say, they're cutting on stuff. The big story was BA is cutting on food for long haul flights. So Alex, if you are in coach, you won't get a second meal. Your second meal will be a small, very tiny bar of chocolate. And if you're in premium economy, I think your second meal is transformed into a snack. Uproar everywhere. What do you think?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed to read that because it is a noticeable difference on BA that, on these long haul flights, especially on the daytime long haul flights. So from London to the West Coast, getting that second hot meal is nice. It's a differentiator. Virgin Atlantic haven't done it for years. They give you this sort of what they call on that flight afternoon tea, which is some stale sandwiches and maybe a bar of something. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's a shame, and it's the kind of thing that people notice.
I agree. That's the thing. And I think especially that tiny, these tiny bar of chocolates like you get from, it's not even hotel rooms, really, it looks stingy. Even, the fact that they give you that, you're like, give me nothing. Just don't give me something that is like 5 grams. Interestingly, though, the CEO of BA is the guy who basically founded Vueling, which is a low-cost airline. And he wanted actually to have people pay for their food at BA the way a lot of low-costs are dealing. You know what? I'd rather have that.
Yeah, as long as the ticket prices were reflective
Of course,
that change, because they're not. I mean, it's expensive to fly on BA, and you pay for that. You're expecting these additional extras, which they're cutting back on.
If you ever fly BA, you'll feel the difference. There's a lot of people complaining. I don't think BA will change its stance, but that will be interesting to see. Also, the unions have called for an industrial action, which doesn't translate into a strike, so I don't know exactly what it means, but it means that also the personnel of BA is not really happy. But to say good things about BA, they released, because that's really for us, the AV geeks. Have you seen that video of the approach of Lucy?
Yes, so cool. So cool. And it's great when airlines do this. It's spectacular.
And it's your favorite airport in London.
It really is.
No, that approach is really, really fun. The other thing that they've announced, and you fly sometimes business with them, is a new seat for, I think it's for the A350. And when I sent you the news, you told me, hallelujah!
Finally, yeah, because I think I've mentioned in past episodes the weird setup that they have in business on the A380 and 777 and 787, where if you're in a window seat, you don't have aisle access except for maybe 1 or 2 rows throughout the entire cabin. And you have to step over the person next to you, which is super awkward. And thankfully, with this new version, which will be on the 350, you don't. Everybody gets aisle access.
I think more and more that's super important for people who are ready to pay that kind of money in front. They want to have access. So the reverse herringbone and herringbone have one issue, is that they limit the number of seats. So in order to have 222, for instance, you have to find a way to give aisle access. And this is one way. So it's interesting.
I think it's a good solution. It's a good solution. The seat doesn't look massively different compared to the one now, but just that change alone makes me rejoice. I don't know when their A350s are due to come into service. I don't think it's for a while, but I'm looking forward to experiencing it.
Yeah. And a few months ago, Ben wrote on 1 Mile at a Time an article about what are the features of the best business seat. And aisle access was one. And this is why he says that it's called the Apex Suite. You can find it on Korean Air, Japan Airlines, Oman Air, and others, where they have exactly what you want, which is, even though it's a 222, if you're at the window, you have your own access back to the aisle. And that's really what people want, I guess, when they pay the kind of amount of money.
Yeah, it's such a first world problem, but contextually, it's a big problem.
Talking about food, so BA is reducing your food, but of course the best food is often found in the front of the cabin. Obviously, airlines seems to be upping each other in that department. There's this guy, a blogger, that takes lots of pictures of airplane food, but also like reviews it, which is different than only reviewing the seat and whatever. I take pictures of every single meal I've had in the plane. I have a picture of, so probably have like thousands of pictures, but I've never reviewed it. And this guy actually ranked what are the best airlines for food. And he says, Cathay is not there, but maybe he hasn't flown it. He says Singapore Airlines first, Aegean second, Japan Airlines third, Fly Nikkei fourth, and then Turkish fifth.
I've only flown on 2 of those airlines.
Probably he hasn't flown all the airlines in the world, and it's also very personal. Food is very personal.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I would say that Singapore, yes, it was. I mean, you flown it. It's great. You said last episode Cathay was better.
I thought Cathay the food was incredible. I thought that the last meal I had on Singapore Airlines in premium economy was inedible, but then Japan Airlines in economy was fantastic.
I've done ANA in economy and ANA in business, and both were fantastic. And it's not in that list, which, tells you it's better than a small bar of chocolate by BA. Sorry, guys at BA, I keep slamming you.
No, it's a good point. I think it's important.
If you don't want to fly BA to go to the US, for instance, the other airline you could take is obviously Virgin Atlantic. And now they will have live TV.
Yeah, they're introducing live TV, which is very cool. 3 channels initially. It's CNN, BBC, and a sports channel. No one else has this across the Atlantic, I don't think. I think it's a neat little addition. Just one more differentiator.
But do you watch TV at home and or in a plane?
On long haul, I absolutely watch the IFE on demand because you can pick and choose what you want. I think I watch live TV on airplanes for the novelty, but there's something quite nice about being connected to the ground in that way. You're not sort of in stasis as you travel through the sky. You're still connected in some way to everything else that's going on around you.
Which I don't like, but I'd rather be like in stasis. But maybe I'm a cord cutter, whatever. I watch on demand even at home. I almost never watch. The only thing that I would say is still relevant to me as a live TV is sports, because whether it's the Olympics, whether the Euro Cup or the World Cup for soccer, football. Yeah, of course, because you want to see in the moment. And I remember having that experience with Emirates, because Emirates is one of the sponsors of the World Cup. They had live feeds of the World Cup. And that was pretty amazing. Okay, the feed sometimes broke down because we're in the middle of nowhere, but already the feed, and that was years ago. It was amazing. So yes. But then we come back to the point of, Emirates was the main sponsor of the World Cup. So they have the rights. That channel on Virgin Atlantic might not have the rights for the NFL, from the NBA, from the Premier League, or whichever sports you're into. And then you end up with a channel which is Alexander and Paul talking about what happened yesterday, right? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just being speculative here.
No, I think you're right. I think, JetBlue had this in the US 15, 16 years ago. Virgin America had it. And I had to say, I quite liked, on a flight from Vegas to San Francisco, cracking open a beer and watching a baseball game.
Yeah. That, yes.
I liked that. It was cool.
But they had the rights because they were domestic. I'm not sure that would happen on transatlantic.
Yeah, no, I think, we talked about this briefly the other day that, when there's so many rights issues as you go from one jurisdiction to another, it makes it really hard. But, I still think it's neat. I think it's a good differentiator for Virgin Atlantic. And it'll be interesting to see if Delta adopt this too.
Oh, they're moving together at, I think at Heathrow. Their Delta was always, because I used to fly them as it was a SkyTeam Platinum, whatever they call it. It was a T4, and they're moving to T3 because of Virgin. So they're abandoning the SkyTeam terminal. They're moving with Virgin. So yeah, they're aligning themselves. I don't know. So maybe they'll have live TV. You remember, because you just hinted at it, I didn't have the IFE at that BMI 321 by BA.
Yes.
I'm flying to Beirut Sunday. I'll fly there with MEA, Middle Eastern Airlines, and I'll fly back with BA. And I think I am on that 321 again. So nice. I'll see now if they will
have it.
IFE, yeah. It would be interesting to see. I'll tell you all about it when we record next. In the last episode, we talked about Farnborough, some of the numbers, and we talked about the difference in strategies between Airbus and Boeing. So we want to go a little bit in there for a little while, because what I hadn't seen when we recorded last time, there was these numbers that went up by Aviation Week about the number of wide bodies sold by Boeing. Ouch. If you look at the numbers there, the article is behind a paywall, guys, so you cannot see it if you're not registered to Aviation Week, but there's a Twitter update with the main numbers. Have you seen those numbers, Alex?
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it?
No, it's not. You can see that the narrow bodies, the short to medium hull plane 737 is super successful. But then we know that the 747 is, dying, sadly, because we see the numbers and you're like, basically no one is ordering it. But then what I didn't realize is that this 777 is not being ordered that much either.
You know what? I don't think this includes the 777X. There's no way it can, because that's proven to be hugely popular. So I think that
these are the current planes being delivered and being in production, I think, or something.
But you're right. I mean, all those 767s, of which there's 81 in the order backlog, those are all cargo.
The title of the article in Aviation Week says it all. It says the scale of Boeing's wide body sales challenge revealed. So there is a challenge there. And it's interesting, because I always thought, Boeing being this very good at these wide bodies. For me, the 777 is, of course, the 747 is iconic, but the 777 is almost a default wide body, because the 340 was never that good. Now the 350 is getting better. The 380 is basically Emirates and a few others. Nobody else is buying it. So for me, the wide body long haul was 777. And now, of course, the smaller version, which is a 787. But take a look at the number, guys. The end of the 747, yet another article by the Daily Beast. Man, it looks like we're having obituaries about that plane.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. That's the point where we're getting to now. It's
Shit.
these are it's a shame, and like we said in the last episode, every now and then there's 1 or 2 here, 5 there, almost always cargo. It's a shame, but I think we should try and get on them while we still can.
No, I don't want to hear this. Actually, one of our listener, Elizabeth from DC, she told me she flew Lufthansa 748, so the 747-8I. These are brand new planes. So we have some time to fly. They're not a lot, but if you fly Lufthansa, you can actually still fly it. So, and she enjoyed the experience. So we should do that, Alex. We should fly Lufthansa.
Any 748 operators out there that want to get us on, you're not going to get any protests from this end.
And that thing, amazing. The 747 super tanker immersive experience.
So cool. So cool.
How do they do that, do you think?
I was just going to ask you the same question, but there's this company called Matterport and Matterport.com, and we'll post the links. But they have this like almost virtual reality 3D space that you can explore, which is the inside of a super tanker, and you can kind of basically float through it and use your keyboard or your mouse to move around. So cool.
They must have taken loads of 360 photos inside and then like just recollected them and,
stitched them together.
Or something. Can you maybe, for those who don't know, can you define what a 747 super tanker is? Because people might not know.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically on the inside, it's got these huge tanks, and it's designed for putting out big forest fires. And it's, I think it's Evergreen International first did it. But it's basically 747s that have fire retardant in them. And they can fly over very low altitude and dump nearly 20,000 gallons of this stuff onto these huge fires, which are happening in California right now. And they've happened in Spain in the past and various other places. But it's incredible to watch.
It even works on mobile, which is pretty staggering. At least on my iPhone 6 Plus S, whatever the name is, it actually did work. So you should, guys, if you love, a little bit of geekery and being inside a plane, it's really well done. I wonder if something like that could be done with some, AR glasses or something VR, because it almost looks like you have like VR glasses on.
Yeah, it's very cool. They did a great job.
To Airbus, so we said that Airbus was almost as gloating, like, oh, we did more sales than Boeing, la la la. Yeah. Well, just a week after they said that, basically now they're getting like a snap of the hand, and more than that, because for the first time they're being hit by an anti-fraud investigation in the UK. And what it means is that there are suspicions that Airbus was not playing completely okay with, potential briberies whilst actually selling planes. The simple fact that they have this investigation is actually already telling, because it's not the kind of investigation that are launched lightly, especially because, Airbus is a European manufacturer. So even if you think about some political entanglement here, Europeans will not shoot themselves in the foot. So there might be something in there. We don't know yet, but it's not a good news for Airbus. Of course, the Americans are rejoicing, says we have regulations that are more stringent. It's time that Airbus gets on the program as well. I don't know where that's going to lead, but that's, wow.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a PR black eye, but who knows what will come from it.
But Airbus, on happier news first, because it was just out of nowhere, they said that within 10 years, they want to have flying taxis in cities. What?
Yeah.
We know they have, a VC arm, which do research in drones. We know they also have helicopters. Airbus is much bigger than just doing the planes that you and me sit in. But they are apparently looking into making flying taxis. So basically small pods, like the one you took from Heathrow Terminal 5. But these ones will be actually flying and picking you up. 10 years? I'll go to see you in your house with an Airbus.
That would be kind of cool. That would be cool. I mean, again, 10 years is probably a little ambitious when we still haven't cracked supersonic.
But the thing that really interested me, and I will thank Eric Hoffman for sending me the story. Airbus is developing, the 330 is a big plane, but it's developing a regional 330. So that would be basically a wide body plane for short to medium haul.
It's kind of like the 747 SP, isn't it?
Yeah, almost. It's smaller, so it can accommodate smaller airports. Maybe not, of course, tiny airports. I was reminded when Eric sent me the story that I think a year ago, the CEO of Airbus said that probably means nothing when you just say it like this, but probably the next version of the 320, not the Neo, so what it will actually be the next version of the 320,
right,
might be a 2L aircraft, not a single L, because it will resolve the turnaround times, because people go out and in faster when you have 2 Ls than one. So it creates basically a small wide body plane. The 330 regional is that same idea.
I get the 330 regional, but surely it would be easier to connect a set of stairs and have people coming off both, the front and aft exits. That surely would fix it.
Even with the current frame of the 320, which is, guys, if you live in the US, if you've never seen a 320, it's like the 737. You usually have, 3.3? So you could do like 2.22 and have small Ales.
That's going to be very interesting.
To see if they actually go there.
Yeah, I can't, because something's got to give, right? You have to make the fuselage wider or the seats narrower.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be?
We'll talk in the next episodes about the new kind of economy seats that are being thought about that could actually help have a better experience in the back of the cabin. But yeah, it's interesting to see where this goes. The one thing that has not been totally solved, at least for short-haul travels, and we come back to also what we said at the very top of the show, is what you put on the overhead, so the carry-on. And of course, it seems that every week we have a new smart carry-on that Alex loves so much coming onto the market. So this week, not one, but two. So first is one that has all the features, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like the 3 US airlines. They all do the same thing. They charge your phones. They have like batteries and wires and stuff. The one thing that this one has that nobody else had until now is assisted compression.
Yeah, they've got a GIF on their site, and I guess basically it helps you squish your luggage down, or squish the contents of your bag down.
Correct.
And it's this patent pending technology, and they refer to it as the one knee compression. Like you stick you kneel on the bag and try and get the zip closed. So they're trying to raise $1 million for a carry-on. And of course it's got your chargers and your, makes you espresso and all that stuff. It's funny actually, because my beloved backpack, which I go on like maybe if I'm going for 3 days is sort of the maximum for my carry-on, has finally died. So I actually spent like a good 3 or 4 hours the other day researching, and I've settled on a bag, and it should arrive in the next few days. It's not smart by any stretch of the imagination, but I will let you know how I get on with it. It doesn't have one-click compression. It doesn't have batteries or anything like that. I certainly can't drive it, so but I'll let you know how it goes.
You said backpack. Is it a backpack with wheels, or is it an actual carry-on?
No, it's an actual kind of backpack rucksack that can be also carried like a duffel bag. Okay. That probably gives away which one it is, but
you'll tell us about it next time, because you'll be traveling with it, I guess, so you'll have some more feedback. I'm also looking, so I'm not changing my carry-on. Travel Pro, love it, never going to change it. It will never die, and it's been through hell and back. My backpack, I still haven't found the one I want. So maybe I'll follow your advice, Alex. The other smart carry-on that just went on is called Barracuda. Wow, that's what a fancy name. Again, has all the stuff, location tracking, USB charger. Well, two things I like. It has, first, if you live especially in a city like Hong Kong, Tokyo, or if you have a very small apartment, the carry-on kind of folds, so it takes a very, very, very small footprint when it's actually empty, which is a nice idea. It has nothing to do with being smart. It's just a nice idea.
It's smart in the traditional sense of the word, and they've spent a lot of time on the ergonomics of this device, the handle systems, how it collapses. It's got a built-in laptop tray in the so you can, like, if you're in the departure lounge, you can sit with this bag in front of you, pull out this very robust looking handle, and then kind of a laptop tray folds down, which is quite cool, actually.
You hinted at the other feature I like. I'm not sure about how it looks. Is the handle is, again, nothing with electronics, nothing to do with your smartphone, but just the fact that, when you are carrying your carry-on, they say, I think, something like you don't have to move your hand. Usually you have to adapt your hand to the way actually the carry-on goes, especially in uneven grounds, etc. This one, the handle on the top of the thing that, unfolds in the telescopic handle is a 360 swivel. I think this is something simple that is smart, again, in the old way of the word.
Yeah, it looks like they've put a lot of thought into, if you took away all of the quote unquote smart bits, would this still be a good piece of luggage? And I think that's probably a very healthy lens to view projects like this through.
Well, I'm not sure you will buy either.
No, not anytime soon. I have a Travel Pro as well for longer trips like you, and I love it.
So I didn't have actually my carry-on when I was last at Rome FCO. So there's 2 airports in Rome. FCO Fiumicino is the international one, though the other one also has international flights. You know that in Europe, an airport can be called international just by flying to the next country. So it's always a bit, it's not the same thing as some other countries like the US where, but anyway, I talked about it, I think a year ago in May 2015. It has just took fire.
Yes, they had a huge fire.
Yeah. Terminal 3 was engulfed in flames. I think nobody was hurt, but half of the airport was closed down. The terminal, was closing down. Terminal 3 is the busiest in terms of international flights. I literally went there, I think it was 3 days after the fire. So you could still, smell the sulfur. People had masks. So my first experience at Fiumicino was dire. I told myself, okay, this is not their fault. So how can I judge the airport on that? I could see that still the experience, if I remove that whole fire thing, was really not great. What difference a year makes.
Really?
I was there, like you said, last month. It was end of July to see Iron Maiden in Rome. It's my 5th or 6th time seeing them, I think, with a friend, because we said, oh, you know what? Let's not go to the UK because it's going to rain on us. Let's go to Rome.
Good thinking.
It's still not perfect, but they've made improvements the same way I mentioned the improvements at Gatwick in another episode. You have a lot of stuff that now is being purely automated. So every single thing was automated. I obviously didn't have a set. I didn't have a carry-on, just a small backpack because I was literally there for 2.5 days. So I didn't have to go through any check-in procedures, with a desk. So I cannot judge that. But the rest, so I had my boarding pass on my phone. There was a first gate that opens to, when they actually check whether or not you're allowed to enter the airside area.
Right.
Then the same thing happened for passport. My passport was readable by another gate. I went from curbside to the gate in less than 7 minutes in such a big airport.
Amazing.
We're talking 40 million people. So it's not a small airport, guys. And this, of course, it's the experience of Terminal 3. I cannot judge the experience of Terminal 1 and 2. I want to make that clear because we had some other reviews of airports where we were so enthusiastic and then realizing that another terminal was not that good. So,
yeah.
But Terminal 3 is for you. If you fly internationally, you'll be in, from, and out. And this is really the one you should know. It's great. When you land, though, it's still not perfect. When you land, it's still too small. It's still too cramped. It's still, again, I didn't have to wait for, my luggage on a belt or anything, but I could, of course, see that bit. It still needs improvement. So we're not talking about the quality, of course, of any Asian airport, but it still not matches, for instance, of course, Amsterdam, which are, staple airport in Europe. But I was impressed. I would have said last year it's one of the worst big airports I've been in Europe. Now I will confidently say it's a big airport, but I had a very pleasant experience. Do not be discouraged because you also have that feeling of sometimes people have a bad idea of Alitalia still. Mm-hmm. Do you? Have you flown them recently?
Yes, remember I did the regional flight.
Oh, yeah.
I did those 4 legs and all 4 of them were late, but the food was good. Food was excellent. And the crew were nice. So I would absolutely fly Alitalia again. And in fact, I remember we talked about this a while ago that and I'm reading some reports on airliners that the premium product has been completely transformed on their long haul as well.
And they are making a lot of improvements. Of course, I cannot judge because I haven't tried it. But what I mean is that there's a bit of an image of, we're going to land in Italy. It's going to be messy. It's not going to work, etc., etc., etc. Sadly, that's still the image. I went to Fiumicino. Not everything is perfect, but I was surprised. I was saying, okay, guys, this is how you make a modern airport now. It's a retrofit, so it's not a new terminal. But this is how you should make a new airport. You put automation everywhere you can to make you and me have a very easy, understandable experience in the airport.
As long
And
as it
I like
works,
that.
unlike Heathrow and Gatwick, as we've learned. But they're getting better. They're getting better.
Of course, you have to have a biometric passport. If not, you have to go through the normal gates. The time I was in was Friday, and the other day was a Sunday. So, busy time, because in the summer, it looked like it was okay. It was flow, meaning people were not backed up for hours waiting to pass security and or passport control. So the one thing I will say to our friends listening from the US, if you are traveling with a US carrier, you will land and depart from Terminal 5, which I haven't visited. So I cannot tell you if that one is good, but I trust that you can tell us and let us know if you have actually hated that experience. And if you're in Europe and you fly low cost, you probably fly through Terminal 2. I've done it as well. Nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
The airport is not very close to the city, but not also that far. Basically, it takes you half an hour by car to get into the city, but there's a train if you want to take it. So I've taken the train, works really well. The main station in Rome, Termini, is also well done. The train were brand new. I took like the regional train because actually the gig, our maiden gig, was on the other side of the city, next to the other airport. I could actually see Ryanair flights and Wizz Air flights landing. So that was pretty cool to see both, bands at the same time, takeoffs and landings. Ditch that image, people, of thinking that Sicily is never going to work. It works well, and Fiumicino Terminal 3 at least works really well. Would I do a layover there? Well, when I have Rome next to it, which is one of the most beautiful cities, I prefer it over Paris. Sorry, my French friends. And the food, no, just don't stay at the airport, guys. If you have Rome next to you, Rome.
You got to get out.
Well, on that, Alex, you are both lining up a lot of flights. Your first flight because you mentioned last episode, you are like 3 times in the US or 4 times in San Francisco, I don't remember. Your first flight is soon, right?
Yeah, I'm bouncing around North America a lot over the next month. So California, DC, New York, most of that on BA, but a few obviously domestic flights as well.
So the first one will be
San Francisco on a BA 380.
Oh, the 380.
Yes.
You'll tell us about that. I've never flown the 380 with BA. As I said, I'm flying in a few days to Beirut, and I'll have many other flights coming up. Probably, Singapore, Tokyo, Beirut again, Sofia, I think, and others. Sadly not the US, so I won't be able to see Alex and record an episode there, but we'll try to record an episode in the middle of September where we both are in front of our computers. That'll prove a challenge, but we'll try. But on that, safe travels.
Safe travels, guys.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.